Okay, we should.
Okay, when I refresh, I see live and I see yeah, that's what I see.
It should be different in a few seconds, I guess.
Depending on configured stream delay, it can take 30 seconds. Okay.
Yes.
Oh, we can see my PR inbox. Oh, and I have to mute the laptop. Okay, good. Yeah, it just went live on my laptop. Okay, that device is muted. And we're live and we're here. So welcome. Um okay, so and in the studio backend, I can see a column for YouTube comments and I can see just a rough preview of what's happening, but I can't see like is the font big enough? Is it a bit stretched as Lou is asking in the Discord chat. So I will trust on people in chat to yell really loudly when stuff needs to happen. Um, and yeah, okay. So anybody just yell at me if something needs to happen, if something needs to be different, if sound's not working, all that stuff. Otherwise, we're just gonna go and we're just gonna see what happens. So welcome to Talking and Docking, live streamed on YouTube. This is so exciting. Admittedly, part of the reason for doing this is, well, we just have so much fun in the Astro Discord chat that we wanted to open it up to more people. Maybe you're not on Discord, maybe you're not available on Discord at the time we do it, and we thought a recording that maybe we could keep, maybe we can upload some clips if there was anything particularly noteworthy. And we have additionally a second call that we do in the Astro Discord, which is TBD, talking before deploying, which is where the core developers come on stream and they teach us something, or they show what they're working on, or they literally pop open the laptop and they just work in front of us, and then we can all watch and we can chat. So that's from the code perspective. That's happening tomorrow. And since the Docs team is really adventurous and scrappy, we thought, okay, let's work out all the issues by doing this for the Docs call the day before. So all of this is brand new to us. We're figuring it all out, so that when the devs come on tomorrow, it's a nice, smooth process for them. So thank you all for joining us in this experiment. This is, in some ways, this is super new and weird and exciting, and in some ways not, because just prior to this, I looked up when the first Talking and Docking was streamed. Does anyone want to take a guess how long we've been doing this for? I don't even know if the people who were there at the time would remember. Yeah, it's been over 2 years. Our very first Talking and Docking was March 10th, 2023. So we are not new to Talking and Docking. This happens every Friday in the Astro Discord, and we just decided to see what happens if we put this up and do it on YouTube as well. Just checking in on the chats there. Okay. Yeah. So I guess we'll just get started. We think it's all up and running. People can yell loudly in the chat. You know how to use all caps. You know I know how to use all caps. And we'll just get started with what we'd normally do. So Talking and Docking, we sometimes plan things in advance. We sometimes don't. It is the docs. The docs have to get done, and there's no shortage of work to do on documentation. So at one point, 2 years ago, we just decided it would be fun to do it together. Astro is a remote organization. It's a project, we are all in different time zones and around the globe. And it's the core team, it's the maintainers, it's all the community. So there's a lot of working on stuff in isolation. And 2 years ago, I believe some of us jumped in a chat to just try to get some things done together quickly, make some decisions. And then we realized, hey, people kind of saw us in chat and they jumped in and they're like, this is kind of interesting. So then we formalized it and we came up with the name, Talking and Docking. So we never know what's going to happen, except that we'll be talking and we'll be docking. So what we normally do, I am sharing this tab. So this, for those of you who've been here before, you're very familiar with this screen. This is the Astro Docs repo, and we've got 40 open pull requests, but only 17 in my filter. Jan, who is also here, Jan is my partner in PR crimes. We have filters going on so that I see about 17 of these, and if you were to look at the PRs that Jan takes care of, it would be the complement to make up the rest here. So these are all the non-translation PRs that we've got open on the fly. So sometimes on Talking and Docking, we'll jump in, we'll just do a quick survey over what's going on, what needs urgent attention, and we might check issues, we might check discussions, and we'll just see what is up. So you can see we've got a lot of stuff. We use a label, merge on release, for docs for upcoming features. We're prepping for some minor release features for next week for 5.9 right now. There is nothing with an unread mark here, which means I've been good. I've been in the PRs and I've been checking on them. One thing that I thought we'd start by taking a quick look at today is actually not existing PRs, unless anyone in the chat here has an outstanding PR that needs urgent attention. But one thing that came up over the course of the week is not about creating new feature docs, but about some docs that we already have. And in fact, that was sort of part of the reason for me thinking of this YouTube stream. I've actually watched a few YouTube streams over the past week. And last week we watched a YouTube stream of someone exploring server islands for the first time. So they hadn't really experimented very much. They knew what they were, hadn't got into them. So they went into the docs, which makes sense. So in our guides, we have a guide on server islands. Now, what I discovered while watching the stream was I didn't feel like this person had, some example they could try to work through. So sorry if this is too much motion. As I scroll through here, you'll see there's not a lot of code samples. Typically what we do is we introduce the topic. We want to show something super basic right off the top. It's really important that for us, if there's, got eaten by a lion again. If there's a new feature, we want it to be really easy, really quickly, for you to see what that feature should look like. So this isn't going to do very much, but it shows you what the feature looks like. But then once you get past that, there's really not a lot for you to try here. So I came back to our Docs and DX team and I said, I didn't feel like this gave someone a great idea for experimenting. And then so that in and of itself is talking and docking worthy. That's like, oh, is this page, what could we do about this page? Let's picture who comes to this page, what purpose they have. But then when I said that, Oliver spoke up and said, well, the actions page. So we've gone from server islands, and I want to call your attention to the table of contents here, right? You got some fallback content, how it works, a little bit of stuff. And Oliver said, well, I was on the actions page recently and I found it. I realized that a lot of the content I needed was stuck inside examples. So that if I wanted to learn something, I had to follow the example and from that extrapolate what the idea was, what the how it worked, what the process was. So then I realized, okay, so we have a bit of a mismatch here. We have two documentation pages next, literally next to each other in the sidebar that look and have an architecture and a structure completely different. And that to me sounds like a docs smell, right? Just like there are code smells, there are docs smells. That to me says we don't have a great way of standardizing so that when readers come in, they can predict what they're going to see. So in an ideal world, and we do not live in an ideal world, and every feature is different, and some features are more complicated than others, and some have configuration associated with them and others don't. But in an ideal world, the reader should get used to what to expect when they navigate to a new page. So that was these two pages. Now, there's another page in the server rendering section, which is sessions. So I thought, okay, well, what do we got going on for sessions? And in sessions, okay, so we look back to the more minimal thing. This one has a configuration section, some explanations, more code examples than Server Islands did. So I thought maybe this one is the middle ground. It's not trying to walk you step by step through an example in order to teach you the concepts. But there are a number of code examples so you can see things in use, a lot more than, say, we found in Server Islands. So I'm not sure how much of this we will actually do today, but this is a really interesting thing. And so we normally bring interesting things to Talking and Docking so that we can inform the community of what we're working on, what it looks like, what our process is, because Astro Docs is so community-based and we have so many community members submitting PRs and filing issues and helping and fixing things up, that the more we can expose our process and our thinking and what we're working towards, that's the more work that you can jump in and contribute to and feel confident knowing what we're working towards as a goal. So we talked a little bit last week. I'm going to switch to this tab instead, still dark mode. So last week we mentioned briefly this idea of diataxis. The idea that there are different content types of information, and these different content types also overlap with your reader's intention and why they came into Docs in the first place. So you just saw, even with the 3 Docs pages examples we looked at, they all seemed rather different. But they're all in the same section in Docs, so they should probably have some kind of standardization behind them. So this model is called diataxis, and it's very well known. Some people adhere to it very strictly. We don't at Astro Docs. We're informed by it because it's something that helps remind us that there are different types of contents and different reasons for coming in to the docs. You can be trying to get something done, right? And that's usually what this application section over here, this axis, you're either trying to do a very, very specific thing, or you're looking up a specific piece of information. You're checking on what options are available, or what parameters does this take, something like that. Or you could be more focused on learning. So this is outside of your actual project and you're just trying to understand the topic in general. Or you're taking a tutorial, which is the tutorial builder, like our Build a Blog tutorial. That's we have people who built it. We decide ahead of time, this is what you are doing. And it doesn't matter what your own project looks like. You are going to walk through exactly what we have told you because we've structured this so that you'll learn particular things. So when I saw this, when we revisited the action page in Docs, if we go back to actions, it felt a lot more like we had thrown a tutorial right in here, which we want to make available, but we maybe don't want to make available in the same place as these other guides that are more conceptual. So this is one thing that Astro Docs is going to be looking at to improve our docs. So in addition to, we need to keep up with all the new features, we're constantly reevaluating and looking at, okay, so are these pages serving their purpose? So a lot of you have been on the calls before. You've seen that we've shown diataxis. Didn't want to get into it too much. But what I also watched this week was a presentation on an entirely different model. Someone who didn't like that we adhered too much to diataxis. So I'm sharing, most of the team has not seen this. We've never done this model on a talking and docking. It was published in January, but they did a conference talk recently and I just watched that the other day. So this is something that I'm going to be going through with our team, and we'll be looking at this model attempts to more humanize the process. And I thought it was interesting that that this model is concerned with actions more than anything else, more than content type. So part of what we'll do today is just sharing this with the team, their documentation model. So I thought this was an interesting graphic here. So especially with Astro Docs, which are a full website and we have to maintain the whole website, there's tooling around the docs, there's the format, whatever, there's the framework itself. And then he wants to emphasize more the user needs of docs. And so thinking about, do we have, and again, this isn't coming in and like, ooh, let's follow this new model. This is, how are people envisioning docs so that we can look at this and make sure that we are covering all the bases for people who might have these different goals. So I like this because docs is all about thinking about the reader, right? Less about the writer, more about the reader. And these are, some things. People might be coming into docs to do any of these things. And since I watched someone kind of struggle with our server island docs, I was thinking, what docs do we have that someone would be successful with if they wanted to appraise or basically decide if they even want to look further? Right? Do they want to figure out what this is and whether it's worth exploring? Do they want to understand something? Do they want to play like a little playground? Do they want to, they've used practice here for things like little how-to guide, what we would call recipes. Do they want to remember or look something up because they can't remember? That would be their reference. Do they want to troubleshoot? Do they want to be in development mode? And one issue that we do have with our current documentation is I think it's always been a little contentious. Pages like our Why Astro, do these help people who are in the very, very initial stage? Do we describe it well enough for what's going on? you know, things that are unique to Astro? Are we making sure that people are getting like this general overview sense without selling it too much? Or should we be selling it? Is that the point of docs, right? Should docs be neutral? Should docs be selling? So I think the appraising user persona or user need task is a really interesting one. We had tangentially related a conversation today. We're getting ready for the next minor release. So we're putting out docs, but we also add a blog post for each release. And there was a question like, can we be a little confident about this? Can we, you know, can we strut our stuff a little bit because we're kind of happy with this feature? And in a blog post, yes, but in docs, we try to keep things all neutral. So this is something that we'll be looking at as we reevaluate some of these pages, discovering that some of them near each other sort of don't resemble each other very well. So for those of you, we have a lot of docs maintainers on the call here right now. I think our strategy here is going to be, and again, one of the reasons I talk about this is I hope somebody on the call is going to like make an issue, make a discussion, make a PR. I think maybe what we're finding out is that our actions docs maybe should not have tutorial stuff in it. This could be pulled out to be a recipe. And instead of like a generic write your first action, like let's actually, whatever this is doing, let's make it a concrete task. Let's pull it out. Let's put it in our recipe section and say, this is how you do this action. I think that has an advantage of being helpful to people who have a specific goal for an action. And then it means that if there's content, if there's concepts we want to explain in these docs, we don't assume that people will learn it by going through all these steps. Because people, if they don't want to write an action, they just want to know something. They want to be told how it works. I'm not sure this page is doing that. So this is something for our docs maintainers to keep in mind, that I think that's the kind of improvements we're looking to make here. And the server islands page in particular, server islands they do require an adapter for the server rendering, but they don't require the page to be on demand rendered. And we don't say that here, but I watched someone struggle on stream, and then they set output server, and then it worked. So they concluded, oh, well, it's server islands, I must need to set my whole site to on-demand rendering. So that's one specific issue that I think we must not explain here very well. And I don't think we have any kind of recipe related to server islands. I don't think we have one that people can follow through. And I think this might be an opportunity for someone who wants to actually try something. So I think in docs discussions, it would be good to figure out what would a nice and simple server island recipe be. So something that someone might want to do on their site that they can put in there. So I think these are some of the things that I will want us to look at, and I would love ideas for. So if people have ideas, what we do is we use our docs discussion for these questions. We try to keep issues to things that are actually incorrect that need fixing, and that keeps it a manageable inbox, so that we know, okay, these should be attended to. But discussions are often a lot of questions like, are we doing this well enough? Should we do something like this? I know Kasunga just filed this yesterday. We were talking about this in chat there. This, I know Lou and I were talking about this one, and he said maybe we should actually talk about it on Talking and Docking. So again, from anything that we talked about today, if anyone noticed anything about the Server Islands page, the Actions page, do feel free to drop that in a discussion here so that we can pick that up, because it feels like those two pages are wildly different, yet they're next to each other, and and people have identified problems in both of them. So I think what would be, I had started to think of, okay, can we converge? What if we edited the two of them at the same time so we could start to get to some kind of structure? I did not yet make a discussion about doing that because we'd only talked about it in Discord. I think that would make a great discussion here. I do know that, I guess I'll start with this one and then we'll go to Lou's, which is the second one. So in our docs, we have two separate recipes. We have recipe for build forms and recipe for build forms API. Now, there was an issue that said, does this link to the issue? No. Okay, so there's an actual issue. It's outstanding. Here, update the build forms recipe to use actions instead. And we decided, well, not everybody wants to use actions. Oh, I haven't even been looking at the chat. So I guess go do what you want. So here's the long, complicated process of how even little minor docs edits and updates happen. So someone filed an issue and said, hey, you've got a building forms recipe, how to build forms, but it doesn't use actions. It should use actions because Astro has actions. But not everybody's necessarily going to want to use actions. So then I'm like, okay, well, what if we make a second? What if we also make a recipe using actions? Because somebody might not want to use it. And then in particular, what we discussed at some point in this issue was, okay, but don't try to cram both things into the same steps. Like if you're using actions, you can do this. If you don't want to use actions, do this. So what we said was, nope. I mean, a recipe should be something that is super easy. You just follow the steps. You're going to be successful, right? We've worked all that out for you. So I'm like, yeah, so 2 separate sections. Okay, good. So our build forms recipe, someone's working on a PR, so we can have an example of how to build a form, whether or not you're using actions. Perfect. So then the person who jumped in to make that issue, if we go back to the discussions where we were, was, well, hey, I noticed that there's a separate recipe for building forms with APIs. He's like, should these all be on the same page? And now that's starting to get a little far out of our definition of recipes, being you can come here, there's a simple thing. Now we're looking at, okay, 3 different ways to build a recipe. And what I had said in the Discord was, well, they are 2 separate pages now. So there might be some historical context as to why they were kept separate. And in fact, in the back of my head, I kind of think that there is, but I don't remember it. And we don't have Ruben on the call, who actually built these. We don't have Otterlord here. We do have Chris here. And I'm wondering if Chris has some historical content as to, or wants to jump in this discussion or on the call here about why these 2 pages are separate pages. I think we intentionally did that in the first place. But Chris would probably have some historical knowledge here, so that this doesn't become this huge, massive building forms page. So this was, as Kasungo was trying to add the secondary method, this question came up. So I thought, well, Chris is here. This is a great chance to grab Chris.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Good question. I was actually, the first one, build forms with API routes, and the other one is build, I'm looking at the search now. Build.
Yeah.
Oh, and build HTML forms. What does the one with the build HTML forms actually? How does that work? We've got
Let's see.
an Astro component, post, and does it show? Oh, it doesn't actually show the. Oh, I see. Okay, interesting. So I don't know. Have you got the pages up? No.
Pages up on stream, and yes, and I've dropped the link in chat in case anybody wants it.
Yeah, so just having a quick look to see. I don't think I was involved in either of these pages, so I don't know the exact history, but just quickly looking at them to distinguish the two, and just quickly summarize what the difference is. So the first one, the one you have on screen right now, this build HTML forms in Astro Pages page, is it's using the page itself to handle the form submission. So basically, this is a page. It has a form on it with some fields, and then if you scroll down, I think it's the last example on the steps. It shows the front matter where. There we go. It uses the front matter of that page, checks if this was a post request to the same page. If it is, it passes the form data from the form, et cetera, and gets those things. Right, this is just an example. So it says do something with the data. Presumably, you could send it somewhere. You could render, but the template below the matter could render different content. I don't know. So that's what this example is doing. And the difference with the second one, so the next page, which is build forms with API routes, is that post request handling is happening in a separate file in this page's API feedback file. So you've got the post handler here, looks very, very similar. It gets the form data, passes it, and then does something with it. So they're very similar examples. It's just a question of where that's being handled. Now to throw another spanner in the works. Oh, there's even easier.
Look at that.
To throw another spanner in the works, this is neither of these are any longer, I think, how we would recommend doing this, because we have actions now, and while you don't have to use actions to handle an HTML form submission, these are both totally valid ways of going about this if you so wish. They work. They may be, especially the one where you're doing everything in the page front matter, is maybe architecturally a bit awkward, because you kind of end up with this page which has to handle rendering the page, handling the submission, doing all the stuff, and all that logic's just smushed together in one template. So to me, I look at that and go like, I would rather not do that. But you can. Simple cases maybe make sense. But yeah, today what you'd probably recommend would be probably what is an example on the actions guide. It's probably not in the recipe, I don't think, where we would have an action defined, where you've got the validation shape happening for you. It automatically translates the form data for you, so you don't have to deal with the weirdnesses of passing form data. And then you can handle that. And yeah, exactly, that section, call actions from an HTML form. So that is probably frequently the recommended path. Maybe not always, because there's some complexity involved with actions, because they have nice errors and all this stuff that you can handle. So there is a little bit more complexity. So once you've got that set up, and maybe you don't want to validate anything, you're just like, no, it's a hobby project. I just want to grab my pet's name or something from some form field, and it's going to be there, and I don't care, and you could just do it. But so on the whole, I would say both of those examples are old. They predate actions. Mostly you'd want to do this as an action. I don't know the reasons why you wouldn't want to do this with an action, really, except, like I say, maybe avoiding that complexity. But yeah, I don't. If I was involved with these original PRs, I've totally forgotten, which is very possible given the. I think we looked this up recently, that you, me, and Jan each have close to 4,000 PR reviews under our belt at this point. So I think we're allowed to forget the odd one. So if I was involved, I've forgotten. But yeah, that would be my guess, is that these both predate actions. The one without the API endpoint may even predate API endpoints, although they've existed for a very long time, so maybe not.
We have, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we can take what I'm showing on the screen is the Astro Docs discussion 11794. I don't know if anyone's dropped the link for it yet. So yes, then that takes us to, should these be 3 separate recipes? Should this be a page about building forms? Should it emphasize the actions one and not even have the non-actions at all? Should it still have it? So this is what makes a discussion, right? And this is why we prefer someone start a discussion rather than file an issue about this, because what we like in our issues, if I show you our issues super quickly, okay, this light purplish color here is good first issue. And I think we do a pretty good job of making our issues good first issues whenever we can. And this lighter green tab here is help wanted. I mean, even more than that, look at all this. If something is help wanted, we have identified it. Yes, this looks good. And we've probably given some advice as to what we want in the PR. It just might not be a good first PR for someone to make. So our issues, this is a great repo if you're looking for a good first issue. We had one yesterday that I think was adding an exclamation point to a code snippet. We will do this. Like, I will not go in and spin up IDX and wait for, Firebase Studio to load to add an exclamation point. If I can just make a good first issue and tell somebody, put it right here and do that. So by the time something gets to an issue, we've done a lot of legwork so that it's easy for you to contribute. That's why we really want stuff like this in discussions, right? And what part of what we do on Talking and Docking is because we are a remote project, and Chris and I don't chat a lot. This is a nice time for us to look at discussions like these and ask questions of each other and just sort of hash some of these things out. So anybody in the chat is welcome to participate in this discussion. You've seen, we just looked through all this. Chris gave some opinions. So Kasungo is looking for guidance here. What should we be doing about this page? So people are free to drop ideas in here. If you are building forms, are you automatically jumping to using actions? Do you want to is there a good reason for not using actions? If you can think of that, put that in here, because that is super helpful to us so that we know, well, we're Astro, let's just make it all actions. But if you've got some really good compelling reasons and use cases why we should keep other methods alive and available in Docs, we need to hear that. That is super helpful to us. But Chris did, in passing, mention how many PR reviews we have. So I will also just make sure that everybody knows how to check your Astro badge. Oh my gosh, Chris, how is it that those are the images of us that are, Chris and I don't fight. We discuss, we need to bounce ideas off of each other. Okay, yes, so if you have any GitHub contribution to Astro, you will have a contributor badge. And with sort order, it's going to be easy for me to check Chris and me and Jan. Now this is going to be tiny. Will it look bigger here? I can read that this says 3.8K reviews. So 3,800. If I go back, Jan's probably got us all beat. Jan has 4.6K reviews. So you can find yourself here if you have any GitHub contributions at all to Astro, reviews, pull requests, issues, and you'll be able to grab your badge. You can grab it as Markdown or as HTML. You can read through all your particular achievements. So Jan has 4.6 thousand reviews in the Astro org, and I don't think I have as many reviews as Jan. 4.2. 4.2. But I think the leader, whoops. If you want to see PRs, so 160, but 1400, I know these numbers are very small, but you can hop into Astro Badge, you can check your own. 1400 PRs to Astro. I think JS Park has us all beat in the PRs metrics. Oh, Chris is saying zoom in. Yes, I can zoom in, or the stats are at the bottom. So you can see that you probably want that zoomed in. Let's see what happens if I have no idea how huge this is. This is JS Park, who makes a lot of PRs. This is our most active Korean translator. And yeah, you can see what the badges look like. I can even go a little bigger if we want to see we want to get a good view of a badge here. So yep, grab yours. Impressive issue to PR issue. You gotta love that, eh? Like when you see one, you're like, okay, like what even was that? What was so egregious that caused someone to make this one single issue? And this is like the entire, I don't know if we can see. So as I scroll through, you can see that you get different you get different levels. So when you first review a PR, when you've reviewed 10 PRs, when you've reviewed 30 PRs. So these are just all your achievements there on the go. The issue was to Astro. Does this link? Oh, this does link to it. Okay. So yeah, what was Q Transitions API did not work properly in Astro 3.0.13. All right, JS Park. And what was it? It's not working production. Worked. Okay, interesting. I don't think I had clicked through there. But yeah, when you see such discrepancies like that, and this will list your the repos you're involved with. But what is really nice, oh, I know who would be an interesting badge to check. This is total deviation, but we never get to have fun with each other. I want to see. I want to see Frayuni's badge because Frayuni took what some people would say is a strange path through an open source project, but actually is a really common path for Astro. So you can see badges related to translations like Universal Translator, PR Perfectionist. Frayuni started with Astro by translating into Portuguese, and then got more and more familiar with the docs, and now, of course, is a core member of our dev platform team, and never met an idea he didn't think he could make happen in the code. So this is also really interesting, is the extent to which our docs, everybody that we're working on, and docs includes translations, and a lot of our translators are heavily involved with Starlight as well, that this is a really good onboarding path to getting into the Astro community and the Astro org, because nobody pays as much attention to our documentation as the translators, because they have to figure out exactly what it means so that they can convey it in their language. So we get so many PRs to English docs to fix and correct things, because by the time the translators hop on it, they notice these things that are wrong. So we are just really proud of this path that, Frayuni's given lots of reviews everywhere. we are just really proud of this path that we can provide. And so I'll jump back. This is going to be a light mode. This is your warning. We are really proud of our docs issues, that we take the time to structure these issues, that we have so many good first issues available. We do the work ahead of time. And honestly, sometimes that means like I've done the whole thing, but instead of putting it in the code, I put it in the issue so that someone else can experience doing it. Sometimes I jokingly say, well, like it's just an annoyance and a task for me, but for someone who is looking to get involved and maybe not so confident and not sure how they can contribute, they don't know what kind of help is needed or what would be valuable, or maybe they see something and think, I think this could be better, but like, I don't want to jump into somebody's project and say, I think this could be better. If we provide all of these issues, there's so many issues help wanted, right? And we've discussed them. And you can feel confident that if we put a help wanted tag, run with this. This is something that Sarah doesn't want to do. Sarah has to edit feature docs, and Chris and Otterlord are maintaining our entire web presence, whether it's the marketing site or the doc site, and they're dealing with issues with the sidebar. We would love people to jump in and help with things. So this is something that we're really proud of, and a lot of Astro's contributors have started by contributing in the docs. And then graduated into making sometimes really significant code contributions. But even if they don't, even if your contributions are to Docs, to Starlight, they are still super valuable, because the docs are the only way that people know how to use Astro. So we are really proud of this platform. And that's why, as weird as it was, I think in the last week I made 3 good first issues. But as I said yesterday, one of them was add an exclamation point. One yesterday, I don't think Hunter's here. Hunter grabbed it yesterday. One of them was remove the word currently from this note. Like, these are things I could do them quickly, I could get them done, but why would I do them if this could be fun for someone else to do? Like, knowing that there's something that needs to happen and they can help. And I think it took Hunter 5 minutes to do it, but that's not only 5 minutes that I didn't have to spend, that I could spend working on feature docs, because we have a release going out next week. But it was just a small effort that didn't take a lot of time, that Hunter knew was needed and would be valuable. So that's just a plug for everybody hopping in our docs issues, because that's what they're there for. And that's also a plug for, if you have ideas or if you have questions or thoughts, don't hop into issues. Right? Ideally, I want all these issues to say help wanted, which means they've been discussed by the team in discussions, and we have a plan and we have an idea as to what needs to happen, so that by the time they get to issues, everybody's confident that I have some time. Let me look at which issues are outstanding and let me see which one matches my interest and my abilities and my available time. So that's why talking and docking is a great chance to get in discussions. I haven't refreshed this page and get back to it. No one has left a comment in build forms. So no one is telling me whether we should use actions, whether there's a reason not to use actions. If you have those reasons, please hop in that discussion and tell us. And we will now hop into this discussion, because Lou had specifically requested that we talk about this. This discussion, and oh yes, and Armand has given a lot of context here. I don't know whether either Lou or Armand would like to speak to describe what's going on in this issue. Lou, you were the one that said maybe we can discuss it. Lou, if you're comfortable, if someone someone might need to give Lou permission here, but I would be happy if you would like to discuss this issue. Then people don't have to hear my voice. I can take a sip of water or whatever for a bit.
Oh, I was muted. I think this works.
So I'm gonna, Lou, I'll let you talk. I will scroll as needed. You can instruct me to scroll. I will go on mute for a sec so I can grab some water, and I will catch up on the chat because I haven't looked at what people are saying. So I apologize if I've missed anything, like something wasn't working right. But take it away, Lou.
Right. Thank you. So basically, I in my university class, web engineering, we're basically making like our own apps and stuff, and I recommended Astro to a bunch of peers because I have experience with it and could help them in many ways where they, didn't have the experience. And we were using middleware in a couple of places. It doesn't even matter where we were using it, but essentially my friend wanted to use the Astro locals, the context locals, which is like a feature you can use where on each request you can store data to sort of, use middleware to pass on data to separate pages. And he wanted to get types for those locals. Astro does provide a way to do this, which is by creating a env.dts file in your source folder. But we, for some reason, had issues getting the ambient types, which is what these files are called, to work for us. And we had to use very specific workarounds, which I'll be honest, I don't even remember where I got them from. And so I basically told him to make a discussion about this so we can see what the issue or what the reason for this was, and so we can figure out why this wasn't mentioned in the docs. Basically, long story short, Armand stepped in to kind of help us figure this out. Because of the way that TypeScript handles these types of files, you are not allowed to use normal imports the way you would normally. So in JavaScript, you can, or in Astro, you do ES6 import. So you write import blah, blah, blah from some package or some path. And that is actually not possible when using these ambient type files, which is something we figured out after the fact. And the thing is that the Astro Docs don't mention this at all, which, that is fair. It's a TypeScript feature. But as Armand has pointed out, it's apparently also something that TypeScript themselves don't point out in their documentation. And this feels like a thing that is fairly unknown. Like, I've been writing TypeScript for a few years at this point, and I didn't know about that. So, yeah, that's basically the current state of that discussion, where we basically went and said, okay, would it make sense to have a section on the TypeScript page in the docs, or do we mention this with comments in our code examples for these ambient type files? Do we maybe add a comment there? I think, Sarah, if you scroll down, and you suggested that we just add a comment saying that only inline file imports are allowed. To which Armand replied that basically we have too many examples for this. But yeah, the question is basically now, how do we move forward in explaining to people that these files, although they're TypeScript files, tend to work a little differently because the TypeScript documentation itself isn't great in handling it either, so we can't exactly link to that. Yeah, that's basically it. I hope that explains it well enough.
Great, thanks for that. Thanks for that, Lou, and thanks for giving me a chance to catch up on the chat and have a drink of water. Yes, so I said we'd talk about it on Thursday, and I think we have a lot of the right people on the call to talk about this. So yes, this touches on a bunch of things about Astro Docs. Is we try really hard to only document Astro. It is not our responsibility to document how other things work, only how those things work in Astro. And we're probably not the best people to document how other things work, right? TypeScript should be good at documenting how TypeScript works. They know it. They're familiar with it. So our general strategy is to not document other people's stuff. The problem lies when we're like, oh yeah, that's how TypeScript works, so let's link to their documentation, and they don't have it. One reason that it's it's not desirable for us to document it is we don't necessarily know when something changes in TypeScript. So, well, we will know when someone tries to use it and it doesn't work, and they'll file an issue and they'll say your docs page is wrong. But we can't keep up. Like, we're not sitting here going over the TypeScript change logs or anything to figure out what's been different. So yes, sometimes we are going to have to document other things if it means that Astro users are not successful. So certainly when it comes to TypeScript, it's our responsibility to document what should you do with respect to like the Astro client and things like that. Yeah, so I've dropped the link to this discussion in the chat. Thoughts here about what to deal with. I think when I looked at this, initially, as you can see, someone said, oh, we should probably update middleware. Or they associated with middleware because it came up while they were writing middleware. But if this feels like this is how TypeScript works, then to think in the most general terms, if someone's having an issue, they're probably going to think this is a TypeScript issue. And so that's why I had suggested, yeah, I think keep it on the TypeScript page. Like, don't add this to middleware. But yeah, this is, and like with some of these docs things, this is also not my area. Me personally, as docs lead, I don't know how everything in Astro works all the time forever. There are some things I knew at the moment I documented them, and then those had to leave my head while I had to document something else. And that's another reason why we really emphasize Astro Docs being for the entire community to participate in. So everyone can share with the experiences they have. Everybody's doing different things, right? So as Lou said, working on this with this team, and this came up, and those of us in docs may never have come across that. So it didn't end up in docs in the first place. My position as docs lead is not to write all the documentation myself. My primary responsibility, is that the docs are written and correct and clear and navigable and discoverable and all that stuff. But also to ensure that we have a healthy community of people involved in the docs so that the docs are good. Which is why I will make issues and say, someone please add an exclamation point here, because I have to get people used to just jumping in the docs and fixing things, right? It can't just be me. That's not what I'm here for. What I'm here for is to oversee the whole circus, is to be the ringmaster. So we definitely have a discussion going on here. We have to figure out what's appropriate. And those of you with opinions, those of you with thoughts, with suggestions, maybe you've seen another documentation, someone else's documentation handled it. If this is a TypeScript thing, like what happens when it has come up somewhere else? Because many of you use other projects as well.
Hi, so I have opinions.
All right, Lou, give me your opinions.
I do like the idea of, first of all, modifying our TypeScript page in the tsconfig templates part. I've sent the link to that 2 minutes ago. It's the same part where you also posted the screenshot of us actually showcasing an env.dts file being used. And adding the comment there would definitely help. Hideo has pointed out that I've read through the TypeScript documentation itself, and there's like part of a sentence that implies that it's not allowed to use top-level imports. It's a bit of... It's not the best, let's say that. So I think, at the very least, the comment there would be good. It could also be helpful to outright state in the text above that it's actually a thing in how DTS files work. And then in addition to that, because most of the time I think the most common use case for these files is for typing out your locals. We should probably link to this part of the docs from that part of the docs, if that makes sense. So link to the new explanation within the TypeScript page. Yeah, around there, around the code block, exactly.
Yeah, around here. Okay, thoughts in the chat. Everybody feel free to drop thoughts in the chat, drop thoughts in the discussion. Lou, these comments would be great in the discussion itself. So everybody's had a chance. I've been looking in the chat a little bit, and I'm glad to see it's maybe not just us that have trouble pinpointing in the TypeScript docs where things are, so we can direct people to the guidance that they need. But yes, it's always a toss-up, right? It's how much are we responsible for documenting someone else's behavior that could change underneath us without us knowing. But then the flip side is, if people's projects aren't going to work, we want to give them a base level of support. So dropping these ideas, it sounds like what we have here currently is not sufficient. So somebody tell me, right? So someone was concerned enough to file an issue. Sparked this great discussion where lots of people have thoughts and are involved. Are we at least, do we have consensus that the page itself needs updating for people to be successful in Astro? That's sort of the first question I would ask of us. Is an update needed? And if so, then yes, this is going to become an issue. And ideally, before it becomes an issue, we sort of have a general idea of where to take this issue. I recognize that discussions are maybe not always as popular as issues for a lot of repos, and a lot of people are used to going into issues for things that essentially are discussions. We would prefer that issues be hammered out a little bit in discussions first, at least, so they don't stick around too long. They don't get, long and difficult to read in issues, because ideally issues should be things people can pick up and run with. But it sounds like, Lou, that we are in agreement that the page needs to be updated, that this essentially is an issue. We're just at the point of figuring out what guidance to put on an issue when we make it an issue. Would that be correct?
Yeah, I feel like that's correct, yes. So basically the idea being that we're stuck between a rock and a hard place, where we basically have a situation where we recommend people use a feature in TypeScript, but the feature in TypeScript itself isn't documented well enough. So maybe a temporary note in docs saying that and this is going to sound weird, it's probably not conventional for us, but saying that this is how this works for now. And yeah, then exactly what Matthew said, just like making a PR to TypeScript docs and clarifying that these cannot be top level imports should or cannot be used, otherwise the ambient module breaks, basically. The thing is, right? Just finishing the thought. Thing is, I have used these env DTS files in Astro basically ever since I've started coding Astro. And the issue I was having is, without the declare global, I never knew how this worked. And even while I've gained more knowledge about TypeScript, this is something that I've never known until last week. And I feel like a lot of people might feel the same, even though they've had lots of experience with TypeScript, because these ambient type files don't normally show up lots if you don't work on libraries, I'd say.
So a couple things come to mind, and I see some things in the chat. I did want to point out Matthew's comment, PR to TypeScript docs, and it wouldn't be the first time that us working on docs or our Astro code has led us to make PRs in other places. That is an excellent thought. I haven't been in them. I don't know that they're open source, but the fact that people are saying PR to them, I'm going to assume they are. That is also a great, a great, community outreach activity. We are also giving back to the community as a whole. I will also note that if someone has a good resource, but it doesn't happen to be the official TypeScript docs, that there are times where we link out to good resources, even if they're not maybe known as the canonical resource. So the thing that everybody is wishing that we could link to, like this wonderful explanation or guidance, if someone can find that but not in the official TypeScript documentation, maybe as an even temporary measure, if we're gonna PR to the TypeScript docs, it's okay to also link to non-canonical sources. Like, yes, most of our definitions do link to, say, MDN Mozilla's docs, but not all of them. Sometimes there's a really great article somewhere and it's really helpful and it, says exactly what we need. It's kind of okay to point there too. So, I launched my keyboard into space. So let me grab that. So yes, if someone else knows of a resource that would work, we could link there instead of TypeScript official docs. That is always an option. And so then Google Assistant assumed I wanted help. You just threw your keyboard on your floor. Would you like help with that? Okay, but at least I'm still sharing the task. Someone has, Emma has opinion. Thank you for pointing out, because I was also dealing with keyboard. And the line, all this. Okay, so I'm going to go on mute. I will take another drink of water and I will let Emma share his opinions.
Oh, okay. So I'm a bit conflicted in the sense that I agree with the others saying that we should send PRs to TypeScript docs. I mean, TypeScript is a really moving target. It moves too fast, maybe too much. However, there is also the fact that Astro is growing. Astro is becoming enterprisey. Like we shipped features that are required only by enterprise environments. We're gonna ship also CSP very soon. So things are getting quite serious, which means that from this perspective, we should also documenting stuff from other docs or things that are undocumented, unfortunately, because we need to foster these new developers. So you can't just pretend that it's too difficult. TypeScript should do that, because otherwise you essentially give up on these users. I know that the ecosystem isn't perfect, but because of that, we are better than that. So we should provide workarounds, or here's what you should do when you find the weirdness in the language, because it's JavaScript. JavaScript is quirky, and there are workarounds everywhere. So see Stack Overflow, it's full of them. So should at least provide the resources to the users to tackle this weirdness. And unfortunately, if TypeScript doesn't do its job, at least we can make help the users in a way. So that's it. I'm conflicted, because as I said, you should document TypeScript. TypeScript should do a better job, but it's not doing that. I mean, I come from a place where you need to understand the semantics of the language, and unless you use the playground and you just play with the code, there's no official resource to understand the semantics of the language, because TypeScript is a language. it has its own runtime. So unfortunately, we can do more than just tell to TypeScript, okay, you should document that, because they should. So yeah, that's my opinion. So I don't know where is the line, like where should we stop documenting for others or not. However, since like we are growing and now we have agency partners, no? So we like we're getting big, like as a community, as a project. So it's not just for pet projects. So the user base, our user base, is gonna grow. We're gonna have also users that don't care about socials and blog posts and this kind of stuff. They just care about documentation. So yeah, so like there are like people old style that don't care about this kind of. So we should welcome them as well.
Yes, I can see Lou's got his hand up, and I just want to quickly address what Emma said. Then Lou, you can take it, because I think you might have actually found some documentation there. Yes, obviously this is an issue that we deal with all the time, and this is where the phrase "that would make a great blog post" comes from, and why we not everything that is true belongs in docs and can go in docs. Now, where that line is changes from project to project, from day to day. It could depend on what mood I'm in, what decision I'm making. Usually our main criteria from a docs standpoint is whatever we put in Astro Docs feels official to people, and it is our representation of how things work. There is a maintenance burden. Anything we put in docs, Jan's going to have 14 PRs show up because everyone's going to translate it. If anything changes, it's a huge maintenance burden. And this isn't to say it's hard so we don't do it. It's to say these are all the competing forces when we consider what goes into Astro documentation. And are we the best people to document this? We are the best people to document how Astro works and how third parties work in Astro. So that is always going to be our priority. Like any project, there's a limited number of resources, and if we have to make judgment calls, those are going to be the things that we're going to focus on. A lot of our pages in docs already you can see, and I'm not going to talk too much longer, so we'll get to you, Lou. You'll give me a sec, but I do want to go to, for example, I think we probably have a lot of them. Maybe CMS guides. What I'm just, oh, and I'm not sharing this tab. Okay, so I'm in docs right now. I'm just going to share that, we'll just go to Directus, that in a lot of our documentation, we will have these sections at the bottom, official resources and community resources, right? If you have a video or a blog post, something that doesn't require constant, it's okay that it was correct at the time it was made. It could still be helpful. It doesn't need constant maintenance and updating. There are lots of pages in docs that have a community resource section, and this is part of our intention to help. Like the same way that I'm going to make a docs issue and let somebody else contribute, if someone else has made a great blog post or article or video about something, docs doesn't have to duplicate that work, right? Because it's not even our official thing in the first place, but we can help people find it there. So that's not to say that it's not important. And yes, we want to try to make sure that everyone feels welcome in docs and has a path to go to. And then maybe this even dovetails to what we talked about at the very beginning of the call, which is what kind of content are we providing in docs? Are we addressing all of the possible kind of content we could do and all of the possible reader goals, why they're coming into Docs. They're coming into Docs for very different things from very different places. As Emma said, you know, Astro's a favorite among people wanting just a super fast hobby blog or website. But there's a lot more big names and enterprises using Astro too. So we have to figure out how to deal with all these reader intentions and uses. And the one thing that we have been able to do so far is add things like community resources in our docs where appropriate, things like that. Okay, I know Lou wants to speak. Once again, I'll take water, I'll catch up on chat. And Lou, what did you want to say?
Right. So after Emma has talked on this a bit, I think what I would feel would align best with, you know, how docs are usually linking to stuff. I would link to, I'm going to post this again, this exact section. It's the one that Heidi has shared as well. Just so we have a reference people can look at that is managed externally and by the TypeScript team. So in case anything changes and our docs are out of sync, the people have at least the option to check the official documentation and have a way to get there and don't need to go on like a giant rabbit hole search spree first. That's number one. Number two, we should, in my opinion at least, totally mention the behavior on our part of the docs while linking to this, and I mean rather extensively in like 2 or 3 sentences, outright stating that top-level imports will break the behavior. I think, I don't remember who it was, I'm sorry, but Armand or someone else, yeah, Armand pointed out an issue, I'm going to post this link as well again, that someone has had a similar issue a while back, and it's been linked to a couple times. So seeing as this is not an uncommon thing, I feel like that would be the best way to move forward. I've also just, you know, chatted with Louise, and I think I'm going to write a blog post on that as well, which maybe could be linked to as a technical or as a community resource at some point, but, you know, not going to, at least assuming that's an okay blog post. But yeah, that would be my opinion. 2 or 3 sentences about how this behavior could break and linking to the TypeScript docs.
Sounds great. Sounds like you have something to add to that discussion, Lou. And thanks for linking this. Yeah, so I'm just scrolling through, and I remember that I did see this. This one might have been linked from that discussion as well, that I know Armand did make a PR related to this. Yes, and actually, for those of you who aren't aware, Lou and some of the other people on the call, like Matthew, are very active in our support squad, and we actually have an elite support squad, which is Support Patrol, who take an extra responsibility to oversee our support threads, to create some support documentation. They actually even make little bots so that we have commands in the Discord to help when people are experiencing support issues. We have a secret bat signal that they and only they can flag each other with it. Oh, and Felix is actually newly part of Support Patrol as well, of course. And this is we can't separate Support Patrol from Docs because Docs is support. And one initiative that I have really tried to do is to keep that connection strong and tight, that our Support Patrol are the people who are in Discord, watching all the questions people ask, going through the support threads, making sure people feel welcome, making sure that everyone's question gets seen. We're all volunteers, right? Like in the support threads, maybe they can help, maybe they can't, maybe they can find somebody that can help, maybe they know the core dev working on the feature to ping for that. But then one responsibility Support Patrol also has is to let me know when things are being asked and it's difficult to answer because the docs aren't supporting that. We keep track of some stats of our support threads. We get a bot reports to us each month, like what the different tags are. Are people having trouble with client islands? Are they having trouble with CSS or styling? And one of the metrics they also measure is, was a documentation link dropped in the thread, right? Did support answer in part with a docs link? Because that tells us whether, A, whether we have the content there, or B, whether we have a good place to link to. Sometimes we rewrite entire docs because support wants to link to this one particular fact, but it's in the middle of this huge section. And we're like, well, that's a clue. If people need to know that, if we have to keep, referring people to here, but it's hard because there's no section heading, then we make a section heading. That thing has to stand out. So shout out to Lou and to Matthew and Felix and the support patrol for what they are doing. And, they are aware of docs issues, right? So I'm not sure if Lou considers himself Team Docs, but he's absolutely a super active member in our support. And here he is, dropping old closed docs issues from February, because that's how tight Astro's support and docs work together.
That was Armand. I'm not going to take credit for that.
Oh, well, Armand too. Armand's involved in both. Yeah. Okay. So then that tells us if we can call up past issues where this has been a thing, yes, we have to document it. And I hope the people that have ideas and strong opinions are going to drop that back. Yes, sharing this tab to Discord. Back in discussion 11759. That's where this is happening. So we've had a chance to, for people to share thoughts, have stuff here. This discussion needs to be ongoing. Sounds like something's got to happen. But before we turn it into an actual issue, it would be great to come to a bit more of a consensus on what is needed. So people can feel free at this point. It sounds like some people like Lou have proposals. Drop your proposal in here. In other words, what would solve this issue? If we were to create an issue and we wanted it to be able to say help wanted, like we wanted someone to feel comfortable enough running with this, what would they need to know? What would we suggest they do? And you don't have to dictate line by line exactly what someone should say. But try to get it to that point so we can convert it to an issue so that hopefully someone can jump on it and grab it.
So just FYI, I've kept track of everything you've wanted me to add. I'm going to do that after talking and docking. But
excellent.
Yeah, I'm also, if this comes up again, I'm very happy to also write the documentation for this. So if help wanted and someone else can't jump in, I'm happy to write that as well.
That's great. We appreciate it, Lou. Thank you so much. All right, we got through two discussions rather. If we pop back, was there anything else? Oh, yeah, we needed to discuss this one. Who pointed this out? It was probably, when I don't know who pointed it out, I'm going to guess it was Armand. But someone pointed out that they were searching. No, I don't think Armand came up with this because I think this was someone who was legitimately searching for how to add an RSS feed in Astro. And this is a screenshot of what I came up with. But I have all the AI stuff blocked in my search or whatever. And everybody's search page is going to look a little bit different. But the person who Armand's got the link to the actual thread, they were getting the tutorial hit before the RSS feed. Now, mind you, they were getting them one right after the other. So if anyone's looking at the URL, they can get to our recipe on it. But problematically, they both had the exact same title. And that feels like it shouldn't happen. Feels like we shouldn't have 2 pages in Docs that have the exact same title. So the issue is that we have the recipe. We have our general guidance on, hey, here's how you add an RSS feed using the RSS package. And this is a step from the tutorial. So obviously we would prefer not people to be thrown midway into, a 6-unit tutorial more instructions on how to add an RSS feed, because this will be very custom to exactly where in the tutorial they are right now, and we'll make assumptions about what code is already there, and the recipe will be more general. So, okay, yeah. Two pages with the same title shouldn't happen. Let's see some suggestions in the chat. Which one needs to change? I have an idea of which one I would change, and what should we change it to? Feels like we should be able to, you know, crowdsource and come up with some good ideas here. Yes, Chris is right. The tutorial one needs to change. Oh, Matthew said it first. Sorry, I'll give Matthew credit. I saw Chris's first, but yes, absolutely, the tutorial needs to change. Tutorial needs to change because I think this is a perfectly good title. Add an RSS feed in Astro Docs. That is something you may conceivably want to do. Someone's going to be drawn to that. They should not be then dropped into the tutorial with that. All right, so Felix asking, should the tutorial generally have lower SEO? Well, so I'm only like laughing here at the thought of like, hey, how do we tank our SEO? Yeah, that's not as, oh, and as Chris has just said in the chat, that's not something we can control on our end, really. You can try to optimize for SEO. The things we do have some control over are things like our Algolia search widget. So actually that would be an interesting, we do this all the time. Sometimes we hop into Docs and we're like, what happens when we search for? So what happens in Docs when we search for RSS? And inevitably, we are always disappointed. No, we're not always disappointed, but we always get surprises. So if you're in Docs and you search for RSS, we're going to get some upgrade guides, which is kind of unfortunate. We're going to get, ooh, this is the project structure page. Endpoints, data fetching, and okay, am I missing something, or are we not actually getting the recipe at all here? You can try this on your own. So I see the upgrade guides. I see the project structure page, data fetching, e-commerce. So this might be worth making note of as well, that I'm not getting. What happens if I add feed? I'm getting styles. Here I'm finally getting recipes. Okay, we've actually had a long-standing issue that was pinned for a while in the Docs repo, which was like, here's the top 20 things we know people are searching for in Docs. Try searching them. See if you get good results, because sometimes it's surprising. A lot of us who write the Docs won't necessarily be using the search widget very often, because we tend to know exactly where things are that we want to work on. Yeah, so this is a bit revealing too. It thinks so Chris has put in the chat, it thinks RSS might be a CSS typo. So unfortunately, this is the page we want people to get to. I mean, I suppose good news is the tutorial one is not coming up in here. I think we do have the tutorial downranked for our Algolia widget, because we don't want people to just be thrown into the tutorial if they're looking for something. But yeah, okay. So that was also enlightening. But to take us back to here. So yes, this is why the tutorial page title needs to change. So I can't use search to quickly get to that page. So I'll navigate to that page because I know where it is. And we should be in here. All right, so you've gone through, you've built a bunch of blog features, and now you are going to the tutorial as you're going through, add an RSS feed. All right, suggestions. what do we want to call this page then? And then at some point we'll tackle the Algolia. And I'm going to catch up on the chat in case people did post suggestions, like add an RSS feed for noobs. I'm just reading. Lou has said we could disallow indexing part of the tutorial that are not the beginning part of the tutorial itself. I think we do downrank them. I'm not sure. I mean, there probably are. We probably do have fine-grained rules about how we could do that. We could think about whether we don't want it there. The problem also, though, is so just imagine the situation where you've taken the tutorial, and then at some point you've come back to Docs, and you're like, oh, I remember I did this at this point in the tutorial, and you're trying to search for that. So I don't know that we then that necessarily want to just exclude the tutorial entirely from Docs. Let's see. So Matthew's got enhance your blog with an RSS feed. I'm not sure people would think of a difference there. What's Chris showing? Minimum characters to accept a typo. We could bump this back to the default of 4. Ah, okay. So interesting. Upgrade guides, and then, well, at least we're not getting the CSS stuff, but yes. All right, we have two problems on the go here. So we have the problem that the tutorial title has to change. And we have that, what even the heck is going on with Algolia there? And there's our upgrade guides are really seem to be ranked high. And this is something that we think about these rankings for like where things should show up a lot, because when Astro was new, and I think we can say we're not new now, but initially we prioritized our learning guides, right? We were like, nobody's going to know what Astro is. So when they put something in the box, they're going to want to like be taught this thing about Astro. Whereas now that we have so many people using Astro, the people who were trying to look up reference values quickly were getting annoyed that it was difficult to navigate to just the reference item to get to the thing that they quickly wanted to know, because they didn't need the guide, they needed the reference. And I'm sure there is a thought at some point that like, oh, if, we've just released a new major version. So someone coming to Docs, if they search, they're probably searching because, oh, I just upgraded and there's this thing in the upgrade guide they totally need to see. And so that does kind of make sense in that moment for that context, that upgrade guides would surface highly. But in general, it just seems weird if you're like, oh, okay, where's about, and then you're getting all these upgrade guide entries. So it's something we constantly discuss, and we're always fine-tuning, trying to make that helpful. But Chris now has gone back to the title. One thing that could be helpful is a global solution for tutorial pages. So have some kind of prefix, tutorial lesson 5.4, adding an RSS feed. Okay, that's an interesting idea. Now, that knowing how that would sort of render, I think we typically we try to keep titles kind of short so that they look like this. Chris, is it possible? I mean, it's probably possible, or is this a bad idea? What if the tutorial pages, what if their actual page title stayed the same, but their meta information had that? Yeah, I should not have asked, is this possible with Fryuni around? So what if their displayed title stayed the same, but the meta title had the tutorial prefix added? Is that something that we think would help this situation for people searching and and getting
Yeah.
tutorial hits?
Yeah, oh yeah, definitely. I wasn't suggesting that that should be the visible title, or that in the sidebar it should say tutorial lesson 5.4, tutorial lesson 5.5.
Okay.
You know, that would be extremely verbose and not a good idea. No, I meant specifically the title metadata tag in the page head, which we could automate like that. You know, we know the numbering for each lesson. We know what's the tutorial page, so it's perfectly possible to automate doing that. So we could do something like that, and it would show up in the title. It would most likely show up in search results on places like Google. I say most likely just because I know this specifically about Google, but I'm going to assume it's similar for other search engines. They do have some logic on their end for formatting titles. So occasionally what is in your title tag and what they display in a search result is not 100% one-to-one. They might, I don't know, if there's something that's always in titles, they might decide to filter that out. If they decide that there's some content in a title that is spammy or something, they might filter that out. So there are reasons why they sometimes do tweak what you have in your title and what they actually show to people, but on the whole, they match up. So yeah, my suggestion was more for that. I think it wouldn't impact Algolia search results because that is based on the page's H1 rather than title. I think, pretty sure. But that's fine, I think, because in Algolia search results, it's a bit more obvious. We have the tutorial category separate, so there's extra visual context in the result itself that makes this more clear.
Yeah. Okay, so that does sound like a solution to implement. Matthew's saying subdomain for the tutorial. I mean, we have talked about, does the tutorial need to be a bit more standalone? But it's nice that it's in Docs. It fits into our workflow. Docs tutorial, Docs Astro build. Yeah, so there are. I think the solution that doesn't require us to build an entire new site, yes, would be to automatically update the meta information for the page so that that title can be displayed in search results, because that's the issue that was raised that we're finding, and I think that would solve it. Chris, is this something that you feel comfortable writing a comment on the discussion to say how to turn it into an issue? Is this something that you would want to do yourself, or is this something that you want to solicit some help for?
People can do this, I think. I was just going to check the Starlight change log, only because I believe we still need to update docs. This is also a thing that other people could attempt, but it's not necessarily the easiest thing. We're, I think, on 31 still, Starlight 31 in docs. It's been on my to-do list for a while to get around to updating it. And when did I add head middleware? Data middleware 33. Yeah, so we don't have access to, because the easiest way for us to do this probably would be to use Starlight's newer root middleware feature. That would involve just having a small file that would check the route of the page, the URL of the page. If it's a tutorial page, it would prefix the title property, and that would be that. It would be relatively kind of clean and simple to do. Whereas right now, there are probably ways to do it, but I'm blanking on the spot. Just because I'm immediately thinking of the way I would do this now with the latest Starlight. But we're on version 31, so the sequence is probably that we need to upgrade docs to Starlight, which is there's a few steps. There's a couple breaking changes. We just haven't prioritized getting us upgraded, but we should. That would be really good to do for many reasons. And then I think this is something I would suggest doing with root middleware.
Sounds good. Okay, so I'm going to drop a link to this discussion in case people aren't there. And And if anyone from this call would like to go add a comment and say, we discussed this on Talking and Docking, this will be an easier fix once Starlight is updated to the latest version. So, hold for that. It's easier than me adding the comment on the stream right now, and everyone can participate. So someone jump in there and say you are on Talking and Docking, and the plan is to wait until we're updated to the latest, until Astro Docs is updated to the latest version of Starlight, and then we have a great feature. We have a middleware feature for doing this, and we'll turn it into an issue at that time. So anyone's welcome to add a comment here. Jump in and do that. And yeah, that's a good plan. And then we don't need to, so that handles what the title will be. We don't necessarily have to rename the title if it's going to have the prefix. At least they'll be different. But we can discuss that when it eventually comes time for a PR. We can discuss, maybe we have ideas at the time as to whether we want to actually change the name of just the displayed in the tutorial. Excellent. Good results. Somebody leave a comment there so we know what happened. And we are getting very close to the 2 hours that we would normally spend. We've got about 7 minutes left for our normal time, which means we are not going to open Oliver's discussion on, we should update the entire client-side script page. But this was the other thing 5 days ago. So this was the other thing that came up this week. So we might as well just take a quick peek at this in case people have ideas. So we have Astro.build. I'm going to go to our integrations page on our main website. So integrations, whenever someone writes a plugin, an integration, anything on NPM that you can install in your Astro project, including our official ones and some community ones, they all show up here. There's some categories. You can search for them. You can search by keywords or by their names. So this works great. And this is a pretty automated system, automated to the extent that we automatically get a PR with new information and we review it manually before this site is updated. But, oh no, not this one. Where were we? This one. We've been noticing lately, it came up in the Discord in chat this week. People were asking about design systems, component libraries, and we realized someone put together a list and started to drop a bunch of them. And we realized there's a lot of things like Starwind or Studio CMS UI components, and not all of them are actually NPM packages to install. We don't really have a good category for this. So we had been discussing, well, so how do we get people, how do we get these into our integrations catalog so that when people are looking for these more component things, they show up. And so at first we were like, do they have NPM packages? And then I think we checked them and I think we figured out that they do have NPM packages, but in order for them to show up in our themes catalog, the way the automation works is that in their package.json, they have to have a keyword, and we set out a few keywords that we specifically search for so that they will show up here. So this issue was about, okay, we need to make sure though that the design system and component authors, oh my gosh, chat, what are you doing? We need to make sure that the component authors, if we go back into docs for a sec, guidance on how to make that happen. So we do have, I guess it's in guides at the bottom here. We have our publish to NPM. Did we put it here? Oh no, how am I not able to find, I guess integrations, that makes sense. Oh, bad, Sarah, did I put this in the wrong spot if I can't find it quickly? So we do have guidance on how to publish your stuff to NPM. This was written a long time ago. I mean, I guess even especially by our wording, did you publish your component to NPM? Whereas now I think this was probably written before we even decided to use the word integrations, before we had anything like that. But yes, so our integrations library requires you to add certain keywords here to show up in particular sections of the particular categories in the integrations library when people choose. So we look for these keywords. Now, interestingly, Chris, I'm mentioning Chris because someone used Astro component to get their UI design system to show up there. And I don't see that as one here. Is that one we have that's not documented?
It is. You're looking at the list of category keywords, but if you scroll up, there is a list of keywords that are required just to be picked up.
Yes, I just have to see.
So we have these two things, Astro component or with
yes,
Astro.
yes.
If you mention either of those, your package will be included. And then the other keywords are for categorization. Because obviously, if you tag your package, whatever it is, CSS or something, we don't include every package on NPM which has a CSS keyword. So there's those two kind of required keywords. One of those is required to get your package to show up at all. And then these are just the categorization keywords.
Right, thank you. I had forgotten that. I was like, why is it not there? Yes, so some of them are showing up, but not necessarily in a category. And we didn't know whether we need a new category, whether these fall well enough under CSS and UI. Should we have a specific category that we recommend? Should we reach out to these people, to the authors themselves and say, hey, did you know if you add this keyword, you can get there? And then the conversation spiraled, and some people were suggesting, oh, we need better NPM guidance for publishing things that are more than just what we consider integrations, because integrations you'll configure in your integrations array, but a lot of these NPM packages you won't. So, okay. Hey, Frayuni, I'm not sure we'll still be here. I think we're looking at running out the clock, but thank you for being here the whole time. And I hope you enjoyed looking at your badge. Story as old as time. Okay, just catch up on the chat really quickly. I'm scrolling through all the docs. Okay. 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 Oh, Lou has an idea. So I see a hand raised for Lou. Let me just read the rest of the chat to see if there's anything. Collection. Okay, Lou's leaving. And okay. So yes. All right. Lou, we're not gonna spend too much time on this, but what's your idea? Bring it.
So basically we have the astro.build/integrations page, right? I do think adding an extra sort of components tag or category to that makes sense, because right now if you check the categories, we do have CSS plus UI, but that's also where like at Astro.js React falls into, or Tailwind falls into, which, makes sense because they essentially handle UI. But the issue is that a lot of these things are only tangentially related, I believe. So finding a component library in CSS plus UI actually gets really difficult. It's, I think, 10 pages by now. It's just a lot, and some of this is components, but some of this is purge CSS for static Astro sites. So it might make sense to have a separate category for specifically components, component libraries. The other idea, but I'm realizing now as I'm scrolling through this, there is a lot more smaller libraries for single components than I initially thought. Was we do something similar to Starlight, where if you have for example, a community theme or a community component library, you can sort of make a PR to get it integrated somewhere. But I think the NPM variant would probably be better.
Yeah, I think there's just so much more for Astro than for Starlight like that. Fun fact, we discovered, so we did some work on this a few months ago. I don't think it was quite a year ago. And we discovered that the logic for slurping in this stuff from NPM, if there was no category, by default, it was set to CSS and UI. I think we when we change that, it should update, because I think changes come in automatically too. So I think that's, but I had to laugh when you said, oh, there's all these in CSS and UI and they're hard to tell them apart. And yeah, so we had we realized at one point that that was our default bucket for some reason. Okay, so we've got Lou's idea that maybe we need to call out design systems and these components separately with a new with a category keyword. You could definitely throw that in the discussion, that idea. Matthew saying UI covers components. I mean, it's hard because it covers so much. And part of thinking of these categories as well, when we look at another place we had to categorize was when we updated the docs sidebar and had to update these pages. So things like UI encompass a lot of this stuff, right? A lot of that falls in. Then there's content. Yeah, so I mean, because UI does encompass a lot, but then it's how precise do we want to be? Which things are truly different from each other? All of these things are they take work to think about, sensible categorizations, and it's all opinionated. You might not get it right. It might be helpful if that's like a super overloaded category and you look at it and there's 40 pages there compared to 3 pages in other categories. That might be a time where we say, okay, maybe it's time to split that up. But those are ideas that you could drop in the discussion and we could talk about that. What's Matthew saying here? The issue is there are non-integrations that get pulled in and featured on the integrations page. And so that's where this whole thing started, is if these things aren't integrations, should they be in the integrations library? And if they're not there, though, then how do we let people know they exist? And as always, the question is it our responsibility to let people know they exist? So if we're on the Astro website and we know how to we have a system for showing people themes, and we have a system for showing people integrations. But if it's not a theme or an integration, we don't have a place for it. And maybe design system NPM packages are closest to the integrations, but they're not strictly integrations. How big of a deal is that? Is it worse to have more different places for people to go than to be precise with language? So we call these integrations. And yes, I believe not everything in here is strictly speaking an integration. It's not something that gets added to your integrations array in configuration, but it is a plugin you might use. There is a distinction. If we look at the language and technically separating them out, there's a distinction between those. But if people just want stuff to add to their project, is it better to just have one place to go to get stuff to add to your project? Oh, bye, Chris. Okay, so Chris's earbuds died. I don't even know if he's hearing this, but we'll say goodbye to Chris. Thank you. Thank you for participating. And that's probably a sign that I hope no one has left that can help me figure out how to stop streaming. I think I know how to stop streaming. We did this on the test too. I think Chris is allowed to leave. So Chris is saying his thank yous. Somebody type thank you for me in the chat in case Chris can't hear, because it's awkward for me to type. Yes, so this is something for that discussion, is if people aren't thinking of the distinction between what's an integration versus what's not an integration, but they just know they want a package to add some functionality to their site, maybe it makes sense for there just to be one place for people to go. Now, one could argue maybe there's one place for people to go and not all of these are strictly handled the same way, but then that's infrastructure, that's maintenance. Like, now we got to change the way this thing is built. And, you know, with things that are working, you have to have a pretty good reason to want to spend the time and the effort and the resources to make them work differently. So yes, if we go back to what the issue was, add guidance to how to deal with what if you don't have an integration. And part of that, I think, is what do we want to do when something is more than just an integration? Certainly, it's not our absolute responsibility to make sure you know about all the design systems that are available. But as Emma said earlier, you know, we want to help people who are coming to Astro. We're not going to document your design systems, but we do want to make them available. We want to make sure that people who are building with Astro have access to all these cool things, because some of these are actually pretty cool. And people would love them and want to know them. So we have our showcase channel. We publish the blog post every month with every new thing I find, I throw into the blog post so that people can discover things. But I mean, that becomes a question is, and this is not strictly a documentation question, but it's guidance on what people should do so that their things are discoverable is a documentation question. And the docs team happens to also run that integrations library and the themes catalog and all that stuff too. So it's the same people working on it under the hood, even if it's not strictly docs. So Matthew here wants us all to undertake a rebrand. Okay. Lou wants me to add a whole new section to docs for UI libraries and design systems, knowing full well that CMS guides are by far the most pressure and hardest thing on docs to come in, because it's really hard for us to edit guides on how to use the CMS if none of us are actually using that CMS. And it's a task to, like, okay, I'm going to do a sample project and I'm going to use the CMS I've never known. So yes, we have great ideas in the chat. And sometimes we have to think about what's reasonable, what's a good trade-off, what do we have the time for now. But all these ideas, you can feel free to put ideas in here. The main idea is we've got things that are more than just integrations. We don't have a great way of showcasing them, but if we let them add the Astro component to their package JSON, we can solve the immediate problem that they don't show up anywhere, right? We can at least make sure that they are discoverable to the extent that they are in that library. And then at least they're there. And if that's a better place for us to get them all together, then we can start to think about, okay, and what shape, now that we have all the things together, what shape should that take? What do we have the resources to tackle? So yes, if you have thoughts about this, you can put it in here. Usually for things like changing how these catalogs and the theme catalog, the integrations library, that's something that the core team, that Chris in particular, has a lot of say in, because he has to maintain how all that stuff works. All right, I'm just checking through the chat. Okay. Lou's asking me to reload. Okay. Excellent. Lou, you have done exactly what discussions are for, which is we had a chat, we talked about it, we looked at things, and recording some of the stuff that happened. when we get to a spot where we have a decision to make, and we turn this into an issue. And ideally, it's an issue that someone can look back on the discussion and see some of these back and forths that we had, the ideas that went into it, and hopefully provide them with some guidance so that by the time it becomes an issue, there is actually something to do. While we're still discussing, it stays in the discussion stage. All right, Jan's got to go too. So I've lost Chris, I've lost Jan. I think that's time. Oh, did Franny show up back? All right. I think it's time to call it. We've gone a little over, but of course we had some excitement getting started today. So thanks for hanging out. Thanks for joining us. This is what we do every Thursday. We just thought we'd try it on YouTube. We thought we'd see how the process works because we have talking before deploying happening tomorrow. And if our devs want to do the streaming, then Docs thought that we would take any hits and we would figure out how this all works so that it can be a smooth process for the core dev team, the platform team coming on stream tomorrow to do basically the same thing but with the code. We never know what they're going to do, what they're working on. Within the last couple of weeks, Emma has given a really great insight into head propagation in Astro. I think they looked at the compiler one week. So we'll see what happens then. But so all my thank yous. Many people have had to leave already. Some of you are still here. This is great. A big thank you to Heideo, who is figuring out all the recording stuff behind the scenes, and then we'll be available to do that tomorrow. Thanks, Lou, for jumping on mic. I know not everybody's comfortable doing that. You gave me a chance to have some water every now and then. And thanks for everybody participating in the chat and in the discussions and in the PRs. Like we do every week, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I'm going to go on mute and I'm going to let everybody leave the Discord so that it's super easy don't leave the Discord, stay on Discord. You're going to leave the call so that it's easy for me to clear out the room and end the event. So thanks, have a great rest of the week, a great weekend. Get in these docs discussions. If there's a help wanted issue that you think you can tackle, please feel free to jump in there. The rule is if it's open and it's got help wanted, it's there for the taking. There's no need to say, I'd like to work on this, or can I work on this, or assign it to me. No, if it's there and there's no PR open for it, that means it's fair taking. So jump on that. So we will stop the call and we're happy to see you around the Discord and around GitHub. Yes, and I will remember to end the stream. This will be my first time ending a stream. So we'll figure out how that goes. Thanks again, everybody. Thanks for everybody who watched us on YouTube. And we will do something like this next week. And we'll figure it all out from there. So have a great rest of the week and a great weekend. And we will see you around Discord and GitHub.